feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
I'm Cherylanne Skolnicki, and this is Brilliant Balance, the show for working women who are ready to shine. Each week, I bring you ideas, inspiration, and insight on balance, business, and getting it all done gracefully. You ready? Let's be brilliant. Hello and welcome back. This is the Brilliant Balance podcast. Well, guys, I am coming off of just an incredible week. Last week was Brilliant Balance Live, our first ever live event for this community, and it was just amazing. For all of you who were there, I missed you already. It was so great to be in that room with this community of women, live and in person, just giving hugs and sharing stories. I think the training we delivered was really a game changer for the women who were there. But the community building was what, really my intention for the event was to strengthen the community. And there is just no question that for the women who were able to attend, that was a big outcome. And we heard it over and over again throughout those 2 days. So if you missed this one, I know we heard from lots of you who said, I would love to come. I have a date conflict. We know we need to give you more notice next time. So there will be a next time. And when we do the next one, we are committed to making sure you get more advance notice so you can save the date and make arrangements to join us because you don't want to miss it. I wish everybody who listens to the podcast could have been there, and we'll get you at one of the ones coming up in the future, I promise. Between then and now, we've had Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day to all of the moms out there. I know we all celebrate that holiday so differently. My tradition is brunch, church and then brunch. And it's just one of my favorite days of the year. I love the opportunity to be with my kids and just take that one morning to sort of stand back in awe of everything that is motherhood. So I hope you had a celebration that meant a lot to you and that you got a little bit of time for yourself, because that is definitely part of how Mother's Day should go down as far as I'm concerned. So here's the thing, coming off of all of these events and everything leading up to it, I decided this week that I am going to take my own advice. And this week's episode, I am going to re-air an episode that I did very early in the podcast. I think it was literally like episode 8, like really, really early in our history. And I'm going to re-air that episode for you today because as I was looking at my to-do list for this week, all the things on my plan I had to find time for, I kept saying to myself, all right, Cherylanne, can you really do this well? Are you able to take on all of the things here and still protect the boundaries that I have in place for my family and for myself? And the answer was no. And that happens regularly. Regularly I will look at what I'm about to tackle and say, yeah, this doesn't all fit. And so because of that, the action I always take is editing, curating the list of what I am actually going to take on, which means I have to take something off of the list or more than one thing. This week, it was definitely more than one thing so that I can give the focus and attention that I need to the others. And sometimes I'll call myself a recovering perfectionist. I don't love that feeling, right? It's not my favorite thing in the world to say, I'm not going to do this, right? I'm going to choose not to do this. I teased an episode in the last one for today, but I'm going to punt that one out a couple weeks. And that was like the gift I had to give to myself. So I want you to see that as modeling exactly what I would advise you to do. And so I'm going to invite you this week to look at your own list and ask yourself, where is some place that I can give myself a little grace? What is something that I can not do at all or change the way I'm going to do it without the world coming to an end? Right? Because sometimes we add so much pressure to ourselves that it all has to be done the way we initially envisioned, or there's going to be disastrous repercussions. And that is just rarely the case. So in this case, you're going to hear a great episode, one of my very favorites, with really practical lessons on doing it all or doing it well. And so without further ado, here it is, one of my favorite episodes that you get a chance to listen to today. I want to tell you, as I was making some notes for today's episode, I thought to myself, for the love of God, take your own advice, because what we're going to talk about today is this really important question. Are you doing it all or are you doing it well? And while I am a big believer, as you might imagine, in doing it well, and we're going to unpack that today, everyone gets out of balance from time to time. It's not something that we can just set it and forget it. Most of my favorite people, probably most of yours, the people I respect the very most, have big appetites for life. We're multi-passionate, and that can work against us sometimes. So, bringing back life into focus is something that I have to do on the regular, and you probably do too. So today we're going to talk about the difference between doing it all and doing it well. And honestly, the inspiration for this episode came from an experience I had with my oldest daughter a few years ago. She is 13 now. She was 10 when this happened. And I remember it like it was yesterday. She came home one night after a volleyball practice, which is just about the cutest thing you ever did see, right? A 10-year-old in a volleyball uniform and just her little hair in a ponytail. And she kind of bopped into the kitchen and she told me that she'd made a decision. I was like, okay. And she said, I decided I'm not going to be in the school choir. So this was interesting timing because rehearsals for choir were set to begin, I think, the next week. And honestly, I'd sort of assumed that she was all in. This is a girl who loves to sing, and choir is a big opportunity to do that at her school. And so it pretty much makes that a no-brainer, or so I thought. But when I asked her, what's going on? What caused the change of heart? She looked up at me and her rationale was so simple. Actually, she almost looked kind of perplexed, like she was about to explain something very slowly that really shouldn't be that hard to grasp. And she just looked at me and said, Mom, I can't do everything. And in that one moment, I sort of smiled to myself inwardly, and I was just about to give her a whole lot of praise for having had the courage to make that decision. But before I could even respond to her, her little face sort of crumpled a little. And she said, but what do you think? Is that bad? Should I do choir? I can if you want me to. It's not that big of a deal. Maybe I should just do it. And there it was. The whole cycle. It was this very brave no, I'm not going to do this thing. I'm going to create some space, followed by this barrage of self-doubt, followed by the immediate need for validation from someone else. And it all played out in this very brief interchange with a 10-year-old in my kitchen. And the crazy thing is it's the very same cycle that I hear every day. I hear it in my own head when I'm vacillating back and forth with choices, and I absolutely hear it from the community of women that I work with. It's like we dip a toe in the water of no, and then we immediately worry that we shouldn't have. We've been so conditioned, it seems, to overcommit. And because of that, it's this crazy hard habit to break, right? Because we get so much validation for doing it. Think about it. People lavish praise upon us when we are dependable, when we're someone they can call on, someone they can count on, someone they know will step up to the plate. And we soak in all that praise and we use it as fuel. We are addicted to the way other people make us feel in the moment that we say yes. But here's what happens. When we say yes to every single thing that comes across our path, do we really get what we want? And I'm going to argue that we don't if what we want is impact. Because when we try to do it all, what we dilute is our impact. So think about that. The first time I really gave this serious thought was when I read Greg McKeown's book. It's called Essentialism. I think the subtitle is The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. It's one of my favorites, and he makes this point so bluntly, almost aggressively in the book. And he draws these two diagrams. Both of them start with a circle, and the circle represents our energy. And one of the diagrams has a whole bunch of little tiny arrows coming out from it. representing these, lots of things we're trying to pursue and how it sort of dissipates the sum total of our energy into lots of little areas of impact. And then the opposite diagram is that same circle representing energy, but with one big long arrow coming out of it, representing the cumulative impact we could make if we harnessed our energy toward one priority. Now, honestly, you and I both know it's not realistic to have one priority. We all have at least a few, right? Probably more than a few that we are going to go after no matter what. But the point is not lost on me. When we toss these little bits of energy around like confetti, we can't ever make a big impact. That's the doing it all model. And I know this firsthand because I get into that cycle from time to time. And here's the clue for me. When I notice something on my list that is stuck at the starting line, like a project that I say I'm going to take on, and it's just sort of stuck in slow motion, and I ask myself why that's happening, it's almost always because it's competing for attention with too many other tasks, and I just can't give it enough focus, right? So until I clear space and I make that one a priority, nothing really of any worth gets done. And I guess by contrast, if I find myself really flying, making substantial progress on a project, it's almost always because it's the one that's getting the lion's share of my time and of my energy. And I'll tell you that progress, it comes at a price. Because every yes, whether it's to the project, whether it's to somebody else's volunteer request, whether it's to something your child wants, every yes comes with an invisible no.
Feel like you're being pulled in 1,000 directions? Let's fix that. Download your free rebalancing toolkit and learn how to design an optimized week that lets you feel like you have it all. Get the goods at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
Every time we say yes to something, we are in fact saying no to something else. But that no is not intentional. It's accidental. It's happenstance. And when your no is accidental, right, you're not really thinking about what you're going to have to say no to, sometimes it really gets in your way. So let's play that out. Let's say somebody invites you to go to a party. If you say yes to the party, which could be a great thing, it means no to a night in your pajamas reading a book on the couch, right? It just by default, you cannot be in both places. If you say yes to the work trip, right, to go meet the client or to be a part of the big conference, it means no to the family dinner or whatever else is going on at home that night, right? One is not better than the other, but that yes comes with a no. And when we are thoughtless and we just say yes, 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 yes to everyone, we're not always aware of what we are by default saying no to. That's why I think it was so powerful to me when my daughter was somehow aware of this when she was making the choice about choir. She somehow had the vision that if she kept that one choice off her plate, she was opening up some breathing room for, a night that she could just maybe grab a book and curl up and read, or a night that she could put a puzzle together or play a game with her siblings. She had this instinctive sense that packing every minute in, being in practices all the time, wasn't going to serve her well. And I could have said, oh, honey, it's only one 45-minute practice a week and we can make it work. And we could have. But there was something in her that knew that she needed to say no. And the most important thing that I think I can do as a parent is to honor and nurture that really brave instinct so that she can learn to trust it for years to come. Because I think a lot of us are still struggling with that. A lot of adults are still saying that instinct rises up to say no to something, to anything, and we're still paralyzed by what will other people think? What if we don't get the praise? What if they don't think we can handle it? I hear this a lot from women in corporate environments because bosses at work are notorious for asking for more and more and more and more. And what I often hear is the woman in the job saying, well, I have to say yes, because if I don't, they won't think I'm good enough, capable enough, efficient enough, right? Somehow my saying no will be a signal of my competence or my incompetence. And I don't see it that way. I think that learning to say yes to the right things for you, including a reasonable time to leave work, including not picking up the night shift of doing 3 hours of work at home after you put the kids to bed, is really important, because sometimes what we're saying no to is sleep, right? Sometimes what we're saying no to is downtime. Sometimes it's the opportunity to have true connection with our spouse or with our own kids, all in the name of saying yes to someone else's priority. The question to really grapple with is, what is your desire? Is your deepest desire to do it all, or is your deepest desire to do it well? And they don't lead you down the same path. The choice to say, I really want my life to be about doing things well. I'm willing to be choiceful. I am willing to be focused. I'm willing to be all in on the things I care about the most and for the people who I care about the most, requires courage. You will disappoint some people, maybe even a lot of people, but that choice is what will drive you to deliver your highest contribution and your most substantial impact. And in the end, that matters. So the question I want to sort of leave hanging in the air with you today is, what will you choose? Will you be someone who chooses by default to do it all? Or will you be someone who chooses with intentionality to do it well? It's a big question. So we covered sort of 3 big elements of this today. One is the notion that doing it all by definition dilutes our impact. I want you to think about that. When I say I'm going to do it all, am I diminishing or diluting my impact in any one of those areas? The second thing we talked about is that every yes comes with an invisible no. And so the more you can do to shed light on that no, to force yourself to really see it, to really honor it, to really accept it, will give you a lot more clarity on whether or not that yes is your best yes. And then the third point is, what would it take for you to honor your desire to do it well, right? How would you make that choice? What would it take to shift into that gear? And are you aware of what the trade-offs might be of doing that? So listen, if you decide that you're going to do fewer things and you're going to do them well, this is really that curate principle that I talk about, you are going to come face to face with a capability gap. This is my prediction. You're going to come face to face with how good are you at saying no. Now, if you're great at it, awesome. You're in the minority, and this will be a lot easier. But if you are someone who struggles to say no, right, where that kind of churns up a lot of emotional turmoil, then you're going to have some issues adopting this. So that's a skill gap that we want to close. And so the next time that we're together, we're going to dig into what I call the art of saying no. This is a really powerful structure that you can follow for saying no with more grace and more confidence. And honestly, you're going to love it. So it really will change the way you view the need to say no, because it'll diminish your anxiety about it. So that's coming up next week. That's it for today. One big thought, right? Are you going to do it all or do it well? And I want you to remember, if you want some help assessing where you might find the need to do some curation, where you might look at your life and say, maybe I am doing a few too many things. A great way to do that is with my rebalancing toolkit. And you can download that at brilliantbalance.net/have-it-all.
All right, my friends, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed this oldie but goodie of doing it all or doing it well. And I really hope that you will put those principles into practice.
Don't forget, a couple of easy places to follow along with the Brilliant Balance community. First and foremost is the Brilliant Balance Facebook group. Just go into Facebook, search in groups for Brilliant Balance. You'll find us there waiting to welcome you in. On Instagram, I am at Skolnicki, and the company is at brilliant_balance. So both of those accounts, great places for inspiration. On my personal account, a little bit more of a behind the scenes peek. So thank you for listening today. I look forward to catching you in the next episode. Until then, my friends, let's be brilliant.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.